Welcome to our humble abode, everyone. My husband John Smith and I feel genuinely thankful to be able to celebrate our fall harvest in your company tonight.
Yes, indeed. The Powhatan chiefdom has had particular success with its harvest this year. Hence we have cornucopias of sweet corn, wild rice, deer, and squash to eat.
So let us feast at a table of colliding worlds and partake in a most unlikely clash of cultures.
Let us use the pigment of our red, black, and porcelain-skinned realms to paint the red, white, and blue colors that unite the colonies of America.
Speaking of patriotic colors, I have been working on a new design for our American flag. Late in May of 1776, George Washington, Robert Morris, and George Wash called upon me and asked me to sew the first flag, and I happily took on the challenge. Given that I manage my own upholstery business down in Colonial Williamsburg, I have great experience not only with maintaining furniture, but also in all manners of sewing work.
I find your work ethic and creativity quite admirable, Betsy. Being that you're a woman living in the colonial times, you're expected to be subservient to your male superiors and attend the domestic duties, such as preserving food and raising children. However, you have pushed the boundaries and shaped the novel status for yourself and for the image of us colonial women as a whole.
I too commend your single-minded diligence, Betsy. Such unveilings of drive and perseverance are what made Pocahontas an attractive candidate to be my spouse. Every day I marvel at her tried perseverance and inquisitive nature, in spite of restrictive social norms that undermine her inner power. Women truly are an integral part of this world.
You make a fair point, Mr. Smith. To add on, I would even say that as African slaves contributed to a societal balance, so much so that I believe we deserve equal protection under federal law. Though minor, the trade exchanges I made during my time as a servant held against my will contributed to the Columbian exchange, triangular trade, and bolstered the advent of a global network.
How foolish of you to consider slaves to be on par with civil folk. All men are created equal, Mr. Bradford. Correct me if I'm mistaken, Mr. Jefferson, but you are a keen proponent of the slave industry yourself, as evident by their forcible and consistent service to you. It appears as though you have been plagued with a moral contradiction. I stand by my belief that all men are endowed with their Creator with certain unalienable rights, Mr. Bradford. And what exactly are those rights, Mr. Jefferson? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
How exactly should us slaves to the white man pursue the happiness you speak of when we are seen as property with extrinsic value, as opposed to human beings with intrinsic depth? Recollect that the Africans you polished and haughty Europeans deemed uncivilized and barbarous were your ancestors once. You write independence declarations detailing your grievances to the British Parliament and your desire for political autonomy, but the autonomy we slaves seek is overlooked in favor of the superior race. A man's seeming virtuous demeanor should be called into question when his words contradict his actions. You are a hypocrite, Mr. Jefferson.
But Mr. Archiano, from what I have heard, you purchased your freedom from Philadelphian Quaker Robert King in 1766, and therefore exercised your natural right to liberty. How then can you speak on behalf of the entire slave population?
Are you implying that my experience being purchased by Mr. King, shipped overseas with cargo load, and being subject to undue physical abuse does not adequately satisfy your slave criteria?
No, sir. I simply mean to say that you are a free man now, above your slave history.
In that case, I apologize for my candid outburst. May I be excused?
That conversation was very reminiscent of land disputes us Indians engaged in with the French settlers when they flooded into our world. Wasn't it, Johnny?
Why, yes, it was. The collision of two conflicting perspectives always sees far-reaching consequences. When I arrived in the New World as a British explorer, the overwhelming sense of grandeur that accompanied the discovery of new lands inflated my ego, blinded me to the perspective of the Native Americans, and hence narrowed my vision.
I apologize for interjecting, but if any of you are interested in learning more about European settlement in the New World, consider reading my very own authoritative account of America's beginnings in my new novel titled Of Plymouth Plantation.
I'll certainly try to get a hold of your memoir, Mr. Bradford. I thoroughly enjoy reading. Mercy, would you be a dear and pass the tomatoes?
My pleasure, Mr. Franklin. How have you been of late?
Feeling inspired, my dear. Of recent, I've become intrigued by a spiritual awakening that has transformed colonial America, and I feel as though I'm becoming a mover and shaker of this so-called Great Awakening. I always like to keep my mind and spirit busy, as my philosophy is that we must always either be writing something worth reading or doing something worth writing.
I completely agree, Mr. Franklin. Writing is an unmatched spiritual outlet.
As a political writer, might I add that writing is most certainly the political outlet too. For as we have seen the success of your Declaration of Independence, Jefferson, writing is an agent of progression, a cultivator of change. Writing gave our meager colonies the wings necessary to fly away from our home nest in Mother England, and for this accomplishment we must all rejoice.
Cheers to a united nation of colonies, free from Mother England.
But what about the fate of the black men, Pocahontas? When will they see the light?